the team that they have right now as assembled, the players that they have right now as assembled, um, how far can this specific team take them? Number one. And number two, how critical is it going to be that, by the time we get to February, there are some real roster changes a part of this team?
This team, just to be plainly
Brutally
honest, yeah, I
honest.
mean this team can take them nowhere. This team cannot go
Close the
anywhere.
blind here, Trev. You keep going. I'm going to close the blind here.
Sure thing. This team can't go anywhere, and here's the reason why. There's a certain level that you have to be at on the defensive side of the ball in order to find success in the playoffs. We've already seen the Lakers get switch hunted to death with some of the players that they have out there on the floor. They right now, I just pulled it up there, 24th in the NBA in defensive rating. They have to, in order for this team to have any kind of playoff life, they've got to get to at least middle of the pack defensively. You are not finding any playoff success if you're the 24th, 25th ranked defense in the NBA. Even if you are a top 5 offense, you're toast in the postseason. So you're going nowhere. So it is extremely important that they make moves. And now this also isn't a surprise, though. We said going into the season that the job of this team is to stay afloat, stay in the mix, so that eventually, whether it's tomorrow, whether it's February 6th, a trade, probably trades, have to happen. And if they don't, that's it. It's game over. They don't have the defensive personnel. Even if we talk, are there tweaks you could make to the defensive scheme? Yeah, I think they're giving up switches way too easily, and teams have figured that out, and they're exploiting it immediately and absolutely crushing the Lakers when they send a double after they get stuck in a bad defensive matchup. But that's a minor tweak. The bottom line is they don't have the personnel to actually run a competent defense right now. Jared Vanderbilt coming back, would he help? Yes. Does he fix everything? No. So they are very dependent, entirely dependent upon making moves, because this group is not going to get it done. They cannot get stops at a high enough rate on the defensive end. Could they make the postseason with this group? Yes, you could win enough regular season games, but I would pick them if they make the playoffs as a first round out, because they can't stop anybody. They can't defend anybody.
We don't have to mention any names, but I know if you look at the chat, everybody's making their own trades here.
Sure, sure.
But I of all the things, and I think you've talked about it, if I'm right here, you've mentioned it a ton, how important it is to get another big and get Anthony Davis to potentially play the 4. I think that's something that you've mentioned in the past. But what is the area that is most important, you think, of this team if they're going to go make a move and they're going to go shop those 2 first-rounders, and they're going to, like you said, have a chance to just put themselves in a position where you could look at it and say, hey, there's 5-6 teams that could come out of the West. Yes, there's tiers. Maybe the Oklahoma City Thunder, they're in their own tier when they're completely healthy. Maybe, I don't know, Dallas turns it around as well, and they're trending in the right direction. That's a team that's in a different tier. But what is the one thing that you would like to see? Again, you don't have to mention a player, but you think that's just so critical that they have to address if they are to make a trade?
Well, I think they certainly need another big. They could use a bruising big. I mean, right now, Christian Koloko is the only other backup big that's available for Anthony Davis because of Christian Wood and Jackson Hayes and their injuries. So they definitely need another big. Fortunately, there's going to be another number of names out there on the market, but they definitely need somebody there that can man the center position, not necessarily to push AD to the 4 full time, but at least to give you the option of running a 2-big lineup out there, which right now they simply don't have. But the other thing, and I don't think you can get just one thing. I think you need multiple things here. You need somebody who can play both sides of the ball on the perimeter. You need a wing, ideally, who can play offense and defense. That's not a one-way player. That's got enough athleticism to track back. You need that skill set on this team, and so that's been a big missing piece as well. And that's bare minimum. You might need 3. I mean, the more I look at this, the more I think, oh my God, they need like 3 guys really maybe to take another step here. But at the very least, you need a 2-way player on the perimeter, and you need another big that you can put into the paint.
So, Trev, how do you accomplish that? Because I think, I don't disagree. I think they need a big. They definitely need a center that is a vet, maybe somebody that also doesn't necessarily give him a little bit of a jumper as well, so he can kind of doesn't have to clog the paint, that type of player. And then I think a 2-way wing is so critical, and somebody that obviously has a skill set where they can play both sides of the ball. Put that to the side for a second. You said maybe they even need a third player. How does this team basically turn over a roster like that with the guys that they have on this team? Because based on what you're telling me, that means, all right, let me just look at contracts. That means D'Lo's got to go. That means Rui's got to go. That means maybe Gabe Vincent has to go. All right, those are three players. I don't think there are teams out there that are all sitting back and saying we're a Rui away, we're a D'Lo away, we're a Gabe Vincent away. However, what they're probably saying is, well, at least that contract's off my books in a year or 2 years or whatever the case is. Okay, let me see what I can get with those draft picks that the Lakers have. Just how much of a challenge is this going to be for Rob Pelinka to try to make something happen that is significant?
It's a major challenge. I mean, not only do you have, people give Rob grief for mentioning the new CBA as a problem. And it's fair because ultimately he's got to get the job done. Ultimately, he's got to supply the team with the players that they need, and he's not done that. But the new CBA, it is a problem. It's 100% a problem. And there's a number of general managers have talked about why it's such a big problem in the NBA and on the trade market right now. But beyond that, it's also an issue because the Lakers don't, as you got to there, the Lakers don't have players the teams are interested in. I mean, nobody, if Rob Pelinka calls up a team and says, hey, let's talk about a Gabe Vincent trade, they're going to say, cool, how many picks are you giving me for taking on his contract?
Nobody's going to want that. Nothing to do with Gabe.
Yeah, I mean, it's he's got another year on the books.
Yeah,
he's got another year. The teams right now are running scared of this collective bargaining agreement. They don't want any long-term salary. They are so petrified of any type of long-term salary unless it's a bargain of a deal. Now, Rui Hachimura, maybe it's an eye of the beholder thing. Some teams will not want his contract. Other teams will say, yeah, okay, all right, we can get there. We think he'll provide value on that. You look at Jared Vanderbilt. Hasn't played, so no team's going to want to take on the remaining 3 years on his deal unless you're paying them something. So in terms of the Lakers and actual players that a team would be interested in, aside from LeBron and AD, it's Dalton Knecht and Austin Reeves, and really that's about it, unless you can get a team that wants to shed salary with D'Angelo Russell. That could be a thing because he's got that expiring contract. So it would be taking those first-round picks, and you're trying to do two things. You're trying to find trades that, number one, can allow you to win right now. But number two, and this is critical, is if you're going to move those future first-round picks and at that point you're done. There's no more moves really to make. Once you've moved those picks, that's it. You need to invest those picks into pieces that are going to be part of your club for a long, long time. You can't go give up 2 first-round picks and get, say, Brandon Ingram, and then he walks away in free agency that summer, right? You have to go and get pieces that are going to be part of your team for years to come. Because otherwise you could really, 5 years from now, we may be looking going, oh my God, how did that team get that pick? Oh, that's right. The Lakers gave that up. And that could be very problematic for the club too. So they've got to be careful with the way they do this, but also aggressive because they've sat out.
Yeah,
they sat out last year's trade deadline. They sat out the summer. So it's a very tricky spot to be in, and the right deal has got to come along.